Throughout history, nations have striven to forge formidable military forces. Many achieve elite status, and a select few ascend to legendary renown. But a rare echelon crosses an invisible threshold into something profoundly different. These are not merely soldiers. They are instruments of war, so utterly lethal, their very existence redefines the brutal calculus of conflict. We speak of the Spartan warriors, whose name became synonymous with unyielding courage, the formidable Janissaries. The modern Navy SEALs, and Israel's Sayeret Matkal. What is the fundamental truth that separates these hallowed units from every other elite force? Traditional elite forces are defined by meticulous selection, advanced training, and superior equipment. They succeed where conventional forces falter.
Yet the deadliest forces throughout history, those truly capable of reshaping destiny, share a deeper, more profound characteristic. It's a secret rarely whispered in official histories or detailed in operational reports.
They don't merely demand superior soldiers, they demand a transformation so absolute, so crucible-forged, that the individual who enters training is utterly annihilated. From their ashes, a new, unparalleled warrior emerges. This profound and often brutal metamorphosis comes at a psychological and personal cost that most military systems simply refuse to acknowledge, let alone pay.
The legendary Persian immortals, an elite force forged by Cyrus the Great himself, rose from a brutal necessity. Cyrus, having survived countless assassination attempts, understood the need for unwavering loyalty and a seemingly endless supply of defenders. These were not just soldiers, they were the royal bodyguards, the unstoppable shock troops of an empire that commanded an astonishing 44% of the world's population. Each warrior carried a distinctive short spear, adorned with a unique counterweight, a gleaming gold pomegranate spear for the 1,000 elite officers, and polished silver pomegranates for the remaining 9,000.
Their fearsome reputation preceded them, as they famously flanked and utterly destroyed the valiant Spartans at the Hot Gates, Thermopylae. They marched through history, conquering Babylon, and with a brutal efficiency subdued Egypt, inflicting over 30,000 casualties at Pelusium. Their dominion stretched from the ancient lands of Greece all the way to the distant frontiers of India, forcing countless nations to choose alliance over the futility of resistance. But the true secret to their terrifying moniker, Immortals, lay in their ingenious yet chilling replacement system. The moment an immortal warrior fell ill, suffered a wound, or tragically met his end on the battlefield, he was instantly, seamlessly replaced. This meticulous system maintained their formidable strength at a precise 10,000, never wavering. To their terrified adversaries, it was a terrifying spectacle. They appeared literally unkillable. You could slay 100, yet still 10,000 immortals stood before you. You could cut down 1,000, and yet the legion remained at its full, terrifying strength of 10,000. This created a profound psychological impact on the enemy, a myth of invincibility. However, for the individual warrior, this very system rendered their life, their sacrifice, utterly meaningless. Your death did not register as a significant loss, it merely triggered an administrative adjustment. You were, explicitly, administratively expendable. Your valiant fall, your personal sacrifice, was meticulously erased within mere hours, swiftly forgotten in the grand scheme. The sole purpose was for the formation to maintain its powerful, intimidating fiction of invincibility. The mighty institution of the Immortals mattered above all else. You, the individual warrior, simply did not. Born from the need to safeguard the very heart of the Roman Empire, the Praetorian Guard was conceived as the emperor's ultimate shield. Yet, with a cruel twist of fate, these elite protectors would evolve into the single greatest existential threat to the rulers they swore to serve. Emperor Augustus, the architect of a new Roman order, meticulously established this formidable force. They were the only armed presence allowed within the sacred borders of Italy itself,
dwelling in their imposing, fortified Castra Praetoria just beyond Rome's bustling walls. Their equipment surpassed that of the common legionary, a clear indicator of their elevated status. Equipped with distinctive oval shields offering superior defense and wielding finely crafted weaponry, their numbers fluctuated dramatically, from an elite contingent of 4,500 to a formidable army of up to 16,000, their strength often mirroring the emperor's own paranoia or ambition.
More than mere bodyguards, the Praetorians exerted an iron grip over the very streets of Rome, acting as a ruthless secret police. They deployed specialized units, the speculatores, for covert operations, masterfully gathering intelligence, and, when deemed necessary, carrying out swift, silent assassinations. Over 3 centuries, their stained hands were directly implicated in the overthrow or brutal murder of no less than 15 Roman emperors.
A notorious nadir came in 1903 CE. After brutally assassinating Emperor Pertinax, the Praetorian Guard brazenly climbed the walls of their barracks and, in an act of staggering audacity, literally auctioned off the Roman Empire to the highest bidder.
Didius Julianus, blinded by ambition, claimed the prize. He secured his fleeting rule by pledging an astronomical 25,000 sesterces to each soldier, a sum he could never truly deliver. His reign, a desperate scramble for legitimacy, lasted a mere 66 days before his inevitable, violent execution. The climate of fear and instability was so pervasive that Emperor Commodus, consumed by paranoia, rotated his Praetorian prefects with such dizzying frequency that one appointee held the post for a mere 6 hours before meeting his swift demise.
And here lies the darkest, most profound irony. A staggering 55.9% of all Roman emperors, from the founder Augustus to the great Theodosius, met a violent end.
The very unit specifically conceived and honed to be the emperor's infallible shield ultimately became, statistically, the single most lethal threat to his life.
The protector had unequivocally become the predator. But to truly grasp the grim origins of this recurring pattern, to comprehend why unwavering loyalty so often spirals into brutal betrayal, we must trace its roots back to the very beginning.
We often hear of Spartan warriors as mythical figures, the very embodiment of military prowess, a template for every elite force that ever followed. But what history often omits, what almost no one dares to speak of, is the true, devastating cost of forging such a force. Sparta's transformation into the ancient world's first true military state was born out of necessity, a stark reality following their brutal conquest of Messenia in the 8th century BCE. They subjugated an entire population, creating a vast Helot slave class that outnumbered their Spartan masters 7-1. This immense demographic imbalance bred a constant existential fear of revolt, forcing every Spartan citizen, man, woman, and child, into an inescapable role, a professional soldier.
Their entire society became a machine existing solely for the cultivation of warriors. And to produce warriors, Sparta first had to systematically dismantle the very essence of childhood.
The echoes of Thermopylae in 480 BCE resonate through time. A mere 300 Spartan warriors, facing down a colossal Persian army of over 100,000, held the pass for 3 grueling days, inflicting a staggering 20,000 to 30,000 casualties before their inevitable, valiant annihilation.
1 year later, their unbreakable resolve at Plataea saw them lose a scant 91 men while utterly obliterating the entire Persian invasion force. Their revolutionary phalanx formation, where each man's formidable shield offered vital protection to the soldier to his left, became the bedrock of Mediterranean warfare for centuries, a tactical blueprint adopted by every modern military academy. The numbers are unequivocal. Spartans represented the most brutally effective killing force of the ancient world.
Yet, Beneath this veneer of unparalleled martial excellence lies a truth that reshapes everything we thought we knew. The genesis of their lethality was the agoge, a cruel, relentless training system. At the tender age of 7, boys were brutally ripped from the embrace of their mothers, their innocence stripped away as they were thrust into austere military barracks.
This unforgiving regimen, the agoge, spanned an agonizing 23 years, from a boy's 7th birthday until he reached the age of 30, before a Spartan was even permitted the meager privilege of living with his own wife. 23 years. The state consumed every single formative year of his fragile existence, molding him, breaking him, reshaping him.
Training was a relentless gauntlet of deliberate deprivation and calculated cruelty. Boys were intentionally starved, compelled to steal food, and then publicly, savagely beaten when caught, not for the act of theft itself, but for the unforgivable sin of getting caught, of demonstrating weakness.
Then came the Cryptia, a clandestine rite of passage for Secret Service trainees, demanding that teenage Spartans commit cold-blooded murder. Their targets were not enemy soldiers encountered in the heat of battle, but innocent, enslaved Helot civilians. These defenseless individuals became their first victims, not a glorious warrior, but a bound, terrified slave. By the time a Spartan reached the age of 30, finally free to marry and establish a family, he had been so profoundly, so utterly institutionalized, so thoroughly stripped of individual identity, that his deepest, most primary bond remained unequivocally with his fellow soldiers.
The communal mess hall, the Syssitia, became his true family, his only family. Wives became virtual strangers, distant figures in a life consumed by fraternal military loyalty.
Spartans, then, were not born superior. They were manufactured, forged through the systematic destruction of childhood, the eradication of individual identity, and the brutal suppression of their very humanity, all commencing at the tender age of 7.
This isn't a saga of inherent heroism. It is a stark, chilling testament to the profound cost of fabricating weapons from children, transforming innocent lives into instruments of war. And here is the unsettling realization that compels us to reevaluate every perceived notion. This template, this brutal blueprint for creating elite lethality, is 3,000 years old. The question, then, is not merely whether the Spartans paid this harrowing price. The more profound, disturbing question is whether every military unit throughout history that attains this extreme level of effectiveness, this lethal pinnacle, pays some version of this same tragic price.
Keep this unsettling question firmly in mind, for you are about to witness this chilling pattern repeat itself across vast continents and through countless centuries, in ways that will irrevocably alter everything you thought you understood about history's most elite warriors.
Centuries unfold, revealing the profound cost of creating elite warriors, forcing us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about their sacrifice. Our journey now takes us to the Varangian Guard, serving the illustrious Byzantine Empire from 988 to roughly 1400 CE. These were not just mercenaries, they were Vikings and Anglo-Saxons, hardy men who made a fateful decision to sail away from their distant northern homes, never to return. Their saga began in 988 CE, when the cunning Emperor Basil II, facing internal strife, urgently requested 6,000 formidable warriors from Vladimir I of Kiev. It was a strategic masterstroke. The Guard was specifically designed to recruit foreign-born men, individuals utterly devoid of local political allegiances. This detachment made them ideal for ruthlessly suppressing domestic revolts, executing orders without a single moment of hesitation.
Their fearsome reputation was built upon their signature weapon, the mighty Danish axe, a broad-bladed, long-handled behemoth over a meter in length, capable of cleaving effortlessly through enemy shields and even the thickest armor.
Byzantine scribes, perhaps with a mix of awe and trepidation, famously branded them axe-bearing barbarians. History recounts their brutal efficiency. At Chrysopolis in 989, these Varangian warriors, with a grim determination, gleefully cut down a rebel army, leaving a trail of destruction.
Decades later, at Beroia in 1122, they showcased their unparalleled might, hacking their way through an entrenched circle of enemy wagons. Princess Anna Komnene, a contemporary historian, painted a vivid picture of their combat style, describing them as attacking with a reckless, almost uncontrollable rage, seemingly oblivious to their own wounds or the gushing of their blood, a testament to their legendary berserker states. But beyond the glory and the gore, Varangian service carried a far more profound, unseen cost. For the Anglo-Saxons who sought refuge after the Norman conquest of 1066, it represented an irrevocable, permanent exile. They fled their ravaged homeland, their hearts aching for the lost liberty of England, a country that, for them, had ceased to be home.
Hundreds of ships, packed with these desperate souls, embarked on a perilous, one-way journey across the vast Mediterranean.
Some, in a poignant effort to reclaim a semblance of their former lives, settled along the distant Black Sea coast, establishing new towns they bravely named Londina and York, utterly severed from their ancestral roots. The poignant tale of King Sigurd I of Norway further underscores this sacrifice. He arrived in Constantinople with a grand force of 6,000 warriors, embarking on a holy crusade.
Yet when he finally returned to Norway, a mere 100 men stood by his side. 6,000 warriors had sailed away. Only 100 saw their homes again.
The true cost of their elite service was not simply death in battle, but the haunting prospect of dying thousands of miles from the land of their birth, or the crushing reality of living in a perpetual exile, forced to build a new London they could never truly leave. In the sprawling Mongol Empire, from 1203 well into the 14th century, existed an elite force known as the Keshig. This was Genghis Khan's personal guard, a unit forged in the crucible of extreme loyalty, where the gravest consequence of individual failure was the collective execution of the entire group.
Its very inception was born from betrayal and the necessity of absolute security. Genghis Khan himself created the Keshig immediately after a harrowing assassination attempt by his rival, Wang Khan. Mongol tribal politics, a treacherous landscape of shifting allegiances and constant betrayals, underscored the Khan's vulnerability. His own father, Yasuge, had been poisoned, cementing assassination as a grimly effective, if brutal, mechanism for leadership transition. Initially numbering a mere 150 dedicated men, the Keshig rapidly expanded, swelling to a formidable force of 10,000 by the time of Genghis Khan's death in 1227. They were meticulously structured, divided into day guards, night guards, and highly specialized archer snipers, each tasked with critical duties.
Their training was relentless, honed through vast annual hunting expeditions that served as immersive, large-scale rehearsals for battlefield maneuvers. Selection into this elite corps was strictly meritocratic, based solely on proven ability and skill, irrespective of a warrior's tribal origin.
Yet, entry demanded more than just prowess. It required solemn personal oaths, utterly subordinating all other allegiances to the Khan himself. The Keshig's unwavering protection proved indispensable to the Khans throughout the monumental conquests of China, Korea, the formidable Khwarezmian Empire, Persia, and their sweeping campaigns into Russia and Eastern Europe.
So immense was their authority that a single Keshig member held the power to overrule any Mongol military commander, regardless of rank or prior achievement. This unique privilege made them, collectively, the most powerful non-royal military force known to history, controlling an empire that stretched majestically from Eastern Europe all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
But what did Keshig service truly demand? At its core lay the chilling Arban system.
Warriors were organized into tight-knit units of 10. Should one man fail, whether by falling asleep on watch, retreating without explicit orders, or violating any sacred protocol, the other 9 were executed alongside him. Your failure wasn't merely a death sentence for yourself, it was a decree of murder for 9 innocent men who had committed no wrong.
This created an immense, suffocating psychological pressure, fostering a perpetual state of intense peer surveillance. Guards who might once have drowsed on watch now faced not just their own demise, but the agonizing knowledge that their momentary lapse would brutally murder their cherished brothers-in-arms. Even noble families were compelled to send their sons to serve in the Keshig, a double-edged gesture of both profound honor and dire hostage. These young men lived and served every moment, knowing that the very survival of their entire clan hinged precariously on their flawless performance. One solitary mistake, and 10 lives were forfeit.
From 150, they grew to 10,000 in a mere 24 years. Every single one of those warriors, every Keshig guardian, lived with the chilling knowledge that their death wouldn't just be their own. It would be a shared, agonizing fate, dragging down 9 men who had placed their absolute trust in them. The cost of their elite status was not individual, it was devastatingly, brutally collective.
While for some, the cost wasn't individual but collective, shared by a brotherhood of trust, for others, the price was unfathomable.
We now turn our gaze to the formidable Janissaries of the Ottoman Empire, a force that endured from approximately 1380 to 1826. They were the first standing infantry in the world to be widely equipped with firearms, a revolutionary step in warfare.
Their ranks were filled by former slaves, individuals who, astonishingly, rose to become grand viziers, effectively ruling empires.
But to truly comprehend the power and prestige they attained, one must first grasp the profound sacrifices demanded of them, the very essence of what was brutally taken away. The formidable Janissary Corps was not merely built, it was forged through the Devshirme, a chilling blood tax levied upon the empire's Christian subjects. Every 3 to 5 years, Ottoman officials, with cold efficiency, scoured Christian villages across the rugged Balkans.
Their mission: to select the strongest, healthiest boys, typically aged between 8 and 18. These chosen children faced an immediate, irreversible fate. They were permanently severed from their weeping families, their childhoods violently interrupted. Stripped of their past, they were forcibly circumcised, then converted to Islam, a complete erasure of their ancestral faith and identity. Before embarking on rigorous military training, these young souls were sent to live with Turkish families, immersing them completely in Ottoman customs, language, and culture.
The brutal indoctrination continued with intensive military training, a grueling process that could last anywhere from 7 to 13 years, transforming them from a conscripted child to a fully fledged Janissary.
Within their new brotherhood, the battalion commander held a unique title, Chorbaji, the soup cook. This seemingly humble designation profoundly symbolized the Corps as a surrogate family, gathering around a communal meal, a powerful reminder that these men, ripped from their biological kin, now had no other family but each other, bound by steel and common purpose.
Their impact on history was nothing short of seismic. On that fateful day of May 29, 1453, a staggering 10,000 Janissaries, an unstoppable tide, breached the crumbling Byzantine defenses at the Kirkopora Gate. This decisive act spelled the end of the 1,100-year-old Byzantine Empire, crumbling in a single brutal day. Decades later, at the Battle of Mohacs in 1526, the synchronized volley fire of their muskets ruthlessly mowed down the Hungarian cavalry, solidifying Ottoman dominance across Eastern Europe. Many, against all odds, rose through the ranks to become Grand Viziers, the second most powerful position in the vast Ottoman Empire. Take Sokodun Mehmed Pasha, for instance, a Bosnian Serb boy forcibly taken as a child,
who would go on to govern the Ottoman Empire for an incredible 14 years. Children, stolen from their Christian families, became the very rulers of the Islamic world they were taken to serve. Yet, this narrative of astounding individual success carries a profound and tragic cost. Over 3 centuries of the devastating Devshirme system, an estimated 200,000 Christian children were cruelly seized from their families. These boys were not just converted. Their faith, their names, their very identities were systematically erased, replaced with an imperial allegiance.
The cruelest irony of all, these former slaves, once victims of oppression, became the enforcers and even oppressors of the very Christian communities from which they had been snatched.
The Janissaries served with supreme, unwavering loyalty for nearly 450 years. But let us recall the fate of the Praetorian Guard. For 3 centuries, they protected emperors, only to be ruthlessly destroyed when they were no longer convenient. Keep that chilling pattern in mind, for the Janissaries would learn the same bitter lesson that every elite unit eventually confronts. The 3 crucial stages, separation, transformation, and binding, were complete. But there remains one more, often brutal, final stage that inevitably comes for every unit forged in this crucible of absolute lethality.
There's one more profound stage in this evolution, a final, often unseen chapter that befalls every unit forged in such fires. We turn now to the British Special Air Service, founded in 1941. This legendary unit didn't just participate in modern special operations, it fundamentally defined them, setting the global template for both unparalleled lethality and the immense personal cost its operators would ultimately bear.
Born from the sheer desperation of World War II's North African campaign, its creation was an act of audacious defiance. Lieutenant David Sterling, confined to crutches, famously bypassed rigid military bureaucracy. In a bold move, he jumped the perimeter fence of Middle East headquarters, driven by an unshakable conviction to personally pitch his revolutionary plan for small, highly trained commando units.
Their very first mission was nothing short of catastrophic, a brutal baptism of fire where only 22 of the original 65 men returned from the unforgiving desert. Yet through sheer grit and adaptability, by the war's end, this nascent unit had remarkably destroyed over 400 enemy aircraft, cementing their reputation for devastating effectiveness behind enemy lines.
The gateway to becoming an SAS operator is a crucible of human endurance. Selection boasts a chillingly low pass rate, often less than 10% of candidates making it through. Imagine the grueling experience of Andy McNabb's class, where a staggering 220 aspiring soldiers began, but only 24 truly earned the coveted distinction of the Winged Dagger. Their iconic prowess was spectacularly demonstrated during the Iranian embassy siege on May 5, 1980. In a dramatic, precisely executed 11-minute assault broadcast live to millions across the globe, the SAS redefined modern counterterrorism. They successfully rescued 19 hostages and neutralized 5 of the 6 terrorists, showcasing an unparalleled level of skill and resolve.
The ripple effect of their innovation was immediate and global. The SAS directly influenced the formation of the elite U.S. Delta Force, Israel's formidable Sayeret Matkal, and countless other specialized units now operating across 5 continents, each adopting elements of their doctrine and training.
But beneath the triumph and operational reports lies a profound, often unspoken cost. Special Operations Forces, driven by their unique demands, face a staggering 40% divorce rate, a figure 13 times higher than the mere 3% rate seen in the regular military. The average operator spends an agonizing 9 or more months per year away from their families, enduring immense strain on their personal lives.
The inherent secrecy requirements of their work further compound this, preventing them from ever truly discussing their experiences with their spouses. This enforced intimate isolation makes it nearly impossible for civilian relationships to truly survive. You return home, a hero perhaps, but utterly unable to share where you've been or what you've done.
This pattern, tragically, is not new. It is the same profound sacrifice that began with the Spartan trainee, unable to form deep bonds with their wives after 23 relentless years of institutional training. It is the same demanding existence, the same isolation, still operating in our modern world, just wearing different uniforms. The cost of lethality remains brutally consistent.
The echoes of institutional training resonate through history, always present, simply cloaked in different uniforms. In the Soviet Union and later Russia, these elite units were known as Spetsnaz and the Alpha Group. Founded in 1974, initially conceived as a nimble 30-man counterterrorism force, their creation was a direct response to the tragic events of the Munich massacre.
This was where a brutalization process began, not on a foreign battlefield, but within the very fabric of their training, before they ever stared down an enemy. The broader Spetsnaz GRU, formed earlier in 1949, focused on deep reconnaissance and sabotage missions. Yet it was Alpha Group, established specifically in 1974, that pioneered the intense counterterrorism doctrine.
Their training regimen was legendary in its severity, designed to break and rebuild. It included relentless daily 9-kilometer morning runs, pushing bodies to their limits, followed by grueling 65 to 70-kilometer forced marches across treacherous terrain. These epic treks were undertaken with punishing 40-kilogram loads, often through the merciless grip of freezing weather. Such extreme demands ensured that less than 10% of all candidates ever successfully navigated these brutal selection courses. Only the most resilient, the most hardened, were deemed worthy of earning the Spetsnaz title. This was not merely physical conditioning, it was a crucible forging an unbreakable will.
The ruthlessness of their training translated directly into combat. Operation Storm 333 in December 1979 exemplified this terrifying efficiency. A force of 660 Soviet operators descended upon Tajbeg Palace in Afghanistan, conquering the heavily fortified stronghold in a mere 40 minutes, resulting in the swift elimination of President Amin and over 300 of his guards.
Yet this lethal efficiency came with its own profound tragedies. The horrific Beslan school siege in 2004 stands as a stark reminder, where 334 innocent hostages perished, including a devastating 184 children. In that desperate, chaotic battle, Spetsnaz suffered grievously, losing 10 operators, including all 3 assault commanders, with 30 more seriously wounded. Many operators made the ultimate sacrifice, using their own bodies as shields to protect children from the hail of gunfire. While the European Court of Human Rights would later rule in 2017 that Russian authorities bore significant responsibility for their systemic failures, the individual operators on the ground paid the ultimate price. They fought with valiant desperation, giving their lives in a futile attempt to save the hostages. But beyond the combat, what does Spetsnaz service truly signify?
The brutalization, the true cost, doesn't actually begin in the heat of combat. It starts much earlier, deep within the training system itself, through the insidious practice of dedovshchina, institutionalized hazing. Here, senior conscripts wield unchecked power, subjecting juniors to systematic beatings, torture, even acts of sexual violence and relentless extortion. The statistics are horrifying. An astonishing 50 to 80% of all conscripts are subjected to physical violence. This internal conflict often turned deadly. In 2006 alone, a grim tally of 250 military personnel were killed, not by an external enemy, but by other members of the military, and a staggering 19% of all military casualties that year. The brutalization reached unimaginable depths. Private Artyom Pakotin, for instance, endured the horrific experience of having gang signs carved into his forehead. Overwhelmed and broken, he committed suicide just 2 weeks later. This system doesn't merely create warriors through rigorous training, it systematically dismantles and destroys individuals through sustained brutalization. This destruction happens long before they ever face an enemy on the field of battle. And when these shattered individuals finally return home, their families are confronted not with the person they once knew, but with an unrecognizable shell. The true cost of this lethality isn't just the damage inflicted by combat itself. It's the profound, irreparable damage the system inflicts upon you before combat even begins. By the time you finally stand face to face with the enemy, the psychological and emotional damage has already been irrevocably done, leaving an indelible mark. And this pattern, this brutal evolution, is not unique to Russia.
The story continues with the modern elite warriors, the U.S. Navy SEALs. Formally established on January 1, 1962, these formidable forces were born from a legacy of transformation. We've journeyed through 3 millennia, witnessing the brutal pattern emerge time and again, from the Spartan agoge to the Janissary devshirme. It is a process where personal identity is systematically eradicated, a death of self before the possibility of physical death on the battlefield. This chilling blueprint of psychological re-engineering, the crucible that molds elite warriors, is not a relic of the past. It thrives, fully operational in the modern era. President John F. Kennedy himself authorized their creation, a vital response to the burgeoning communist insurgencies that threatened global stability. Their lineage traces back to the courageous World War II underwater demolition teams, the Frogmen, who cleared beaches under relentless fire. The very name SEAL encapsulates their extraordinary versatility. They are masters of the sea, the air, and the land, capable of operating with lethal precision in any environment. The crucible for these warriors is the legendary Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL, or BUDS, training, a grueling 24-week odyssey designed to break the weak and forge the unbreakable. The attrition rate is staggering, a testament to its intensity. A brutal 68% to 85% of candidates wash out. The infamous Hell Week pushes human endurance to its absolute limits. 5.5 continuous days of relentless, unforgiving training, punctuated by a mere 4 hours of cumulative sleep. It is a gauntlet designed to strip away all pretense, to reveal the deepest reserves of will. For every 100 aspiring warriors who dare to begin this trial, only a select 15 to 25 will endure, earning the revered trident pin, a symbol of their new, transformed identity. This relentless forging culminates in operations like May 2, 2011, Operation Neptune Spear. Under the shroud of night, 23 highly trained SEALs, accompanied by the valorous combat dog Chibi Cairo, launched a precision strike. From the silent skies, 2 advanced stealth Blackhawks delivered them to their target, the heavily fortified Abbottabad compound. In a swift and decisive 40-minute engagement, Osama bin Laden, the architect of terror, was eliminated, a mere 9 minutes after compound entry. Remarkably, the SEAL team suffered 0 casualties. His identity was unequivocally confirmed by a 100% DNA match. His body then committed to the depths of the sea, closing a chapter of global pursuit. This mission stands as one of the most impeccably executed and strategically successful special operations in all of modern history. The recovery efforts were meticulously executed, body confirmed via DNA with 100% certainty, and subsequently laid to rest at sea. This operation stands as one of the most successful special operations in recent memory, a triumph of strategy and precision. Yet beneath the surface of this remarkable success lies a haunting truth almost never acknowledged. Recall our earlier discussion about the Spartans and the profound, unspoken aspect of their experience that would only truly resonate when juxtaposed with the lives of modern warriors. Now, that connection comes into sharp focus. Herodotus, the ancient historian, meticulously chronicled an event in 480 BCE where a Spartan soldier, overwhelmed by the horrors of the hot gates, was removed from the front lines, his body racked with an uncontrollable tremor. Consumed by the crushing weight of his perceived failure and the shame of his inability to fight, he later chose to end his own life. This, chillingly, marks the first recorded case of what we now understand as combat PTSD in human history, an agonizing 2,500 years ago. In the rigid society of ancient Sparta,
Surviving a battle with such profound shame was universally regarded as a fate far worse than death itself.
Now, let us bridge the chasm of 2.5 millennia. Today, veterans returning from combat zones, often bearing the invisible scars of exposure and even mild traumatic brain injury, exhibit alarmingly high rates of PTSD, with an unsettling 44% being affected.
The profound burden of combat guilt emerges as the single most significant predictor of suicidal attempts among these brave individuals. Elite SEAL team operators, accustomed to extreme pressure, frequently articulate their struggles with moral injury, the profound spiritual and psychological suffering that arises when actions taken in high-stakes, chaotic environments go terribly wrong, or when witnessing deeds that violate their deepest moral code.
This insidious harm, whether from something they've seen or something they were compelled to do, can lay dormant, a silent predator, for decades before manifesting its devastating symptoms. It is the same man, caught in the same recurring pattern, separated by 2,500 years. The only superficial changes are the name he bore and the uniform he wore. The underlying trauma, the profound human cost of lethality, remains unchanged. Throughout the annals of human endeavor, the clash of armies has painted history's canvas with moments celebrated for their unparalleled courage, brilliant strategy, and profound sacrifice. Yet beyond these common narratives, a select handful of engagements emerge, transcending the very definition of normal warfare. These are battles so incredibly one-sided, so utterly lopsided, that their outcomes defied all logic and seemed truly impossible. Imagine the steadfast 300 Spartans holding the narrow pass against the overwhelming tide of 100,000 Persian immortals at Thermopylae. Picture the astonishing encounter of a mere 168 Spanish conquistadors standing against 80,000 formidable Inca soldiers.
Envision the sheer defiance of 150 determined British troops facing a charging host of 4,000 fierce Zulu warriors. What profound, perhaps unsettling truth separates these legendary skirmishes from every other military engagement in recorded history?